The following is an EHC media production.
Hi everyone, Ebeza here, and just want to let you know about my two YouTube channels that you might like. First, I have a WWE related channel. I play WWE games, I talk about WWE, the real products and all that sort of stuff. And the other channel, I just play a wider variety of games. The links are in the description of this video, so please head on over and check me out. Thanks very much.
EWA.
Do you play WWE 2K18 on the PS4? Would you like to play against other like-minded players in a very unique online league that's unique because we are more committed to storylines than just a straight-up competitive league. The league is still very competitive, but we also try to run things like a bit of a TV show. Check out the YouTube channel and the Facebook page in the description below if you're interested. Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Rwt UK. I am your host, Mike Ebeza, and I have just watched, well, I am from the UK, which is why I have been selected to do this review. I don't think it's anything to do with talent. If you enjoy what I do have a couple of YouTube channels. They will be linked in the description below. Feel free to check me out, but that's all the cheap plugs out of the way. NXT UK started this week. We had the first ever show. Obviously, we've had a couple of UK Championship tournaments, like one-off specials, but this is now a weekly show that I will be reviewing every week on the channel. So, let us kick things off by saying I absolutely hate the theme song. The theme song, if you're an international listener, you might not know this term. The theme song is chavvy. It's like these MCing kind of rappers that chavvy just means kind of ghetto, but kind of not as legitimately threatening. Chavs are just like gangsters without actual, you know, balls. So yeah, but I really hate it. It's sort of like it's just not my sort of music. I don't think it suits the show. I think wrestling really suits rock music, or at least good rap, and this is neither. So that's my two cents on the theme song. Let me know in the comments what you think, but personally, I don't like it at all. This reminded me, by the way, when they were starting up the episode, I think they had like a bit of a video package. I still haven't actually watched the second UK Championship tournament, so I'm going to endeavour to watch that between this week and next week, just so I'm a little bit more refreshed on what this kind of build up to this episode 1 was. Right. So the first match was Mark Andrews versus Joe Coffey, who had his brother Mark Coffey, something else, M Coffey. Did we have 2 Marks in this match? We had lots of Marks in the crowd. And at one point, the first thing I've written down here, it was a decent match. First of all, decent first match to kick things off. It wasn't anything mind blowing, but this is. I don't want to go into this with too high expectations because they're like, oh, it's the best of the UK talent and blah 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 blah. I think there's a danger of people kind of over expecting. This is a weekly show. It's like Raw or SmackDown or NXT. NXT is great, but they don't necessarily have every single match be a 5-star classic every single week on any WWE show or any show worldwide. There's a time and a place for that. This match was a decent first match. One thing that bugged me was Joe Coffey. The crowd were chanting at him and he was shouting "My Kingdom," which I think he wants to become a thing. But I think he shouted it like 3 times, and I think it was because he was very aware he was being drowned out by the fans, the first couple. So when they died down a little bit, he shouted it at them again, and it was like, all right, mate, we heard you. It's not really that amazing a thing. You had to repeat it 3 times. Coffee got the victory thanks to a distraction from his brother, and yeah, there you go. So we kick things off with the very obvious heel getting the win over the very obvious babyface. By the way, on the topic of Mark Andrews, actually, on a broader topic, sorry for taking tangents all over the place here, guys, but I'm not that familiar, believe it or not, with the whole UK scene. Years and years ago, I used to go to some UK indies. I think there's 2 people on this entire card that I have seen live and in person wrestle. So I'm not like overly familiar with it also. So I'm quite looking forward to sort of growing my opinion of these guys based purely on what I see on NXT UK. And seeing how that differs from like their hardcore lifelong fans, because the presentation can just be so different that it gives a complete different impression. But my thing with Mark Andrews is he's so like smile and wave and white meat babyface. What's his ceiling? To me, his ceiling's quite low because there's lots of good wrestlers. You know, like he can be a good wrestler, he can be a good high flyer. There's lots of those. He doesn't have that sort of oomph about him that, to me, puts you in that sort of main event bracket. I might be wrong. Maybe he'll eventually be the UK champion. I don't know. But at the moment, I just don't see him as that level of guy, even though he's clearly very popular. But, again, that might be an unpopular opinion. But that's just my thoughts. Then next up, we had a video package for, I think his name was Eddie Dennis. I wrote down a touch afterwards, and I was like, was that right? I think it was Eddie Dennis. And it was about how he was friends with Pete Dunne and Mark Andrews. And then it kind of seemed to take a bit of a sinister turn without really telegraphing it. Without it being like the heel vaudevillains entrance theme where it suddenly goes in the background and, suddenly he's frowning all the time and whatever. It wasn't like really telegraphed, but it seemed to me like he was going to debut as a heel. And probably go after, I would think, Mark Andrews, because I'd be surprised if... I mean, I've never heard this name. There's lots that I've not seen live, but I've heard of most of them. I don't know who Eddie Dennis is. That might just be my ignorance. I don't know, but to me, I'd be surprised if he went straight after Pete Dunne. And because he mentioned Dunne and Andrews, I feel like him coming in as a heel and then both effectively being babyfaces. I know Pete Dunne's a little bit more grey area than Mark Andrews, but he's a face, let's be honest. Yeah, I feel like Eddie Dennis is coming in to feud with Mark Andrews, which is interesting considering Andrews is straight off a loss being outnumbered. Oh, I forgot to mention, Flash Morgan Webster made the save. The Coffees attacked Mark Andrews after the match. I'll be honest, I've never seen anything of Webster except... I think I did watch some of the UK Championship Tournament and then never finished it, because I think I've seen one of his matches at that, but I've not seen anything else, so I don't have a massive opinion, except he's just a walking stereotype, and it's like he'll need to really impress me for me to like him, because I don't generally find myself drawn to that sort of person. I don't want to say I don't like people like that, because obviously that's not fair to judge someone, but I would not, in a social environment where it was acceptable to approach new people and sort of start chatting, would not necessarily go to someone who looks like Flash Morgan Webster. Let's just put it that way. I wouldn't say I'd automatically dislike him. I'm just saying I wouldn't be drawn to him. So he's going to have to be really good to sort of draw me in. Next, we had a kind of weird promo-y segment with Mustache Mountain. It was clearly just fan service to get him on the show, get the big pop, introduce the concept of the UK tag team division. They were in wrestling attire. They could have done this in suits and it would look much better, because one of the things I wrote was Trent Seven either needs to see the inside of a gym or needs to change his wrestling attire. Because there's big guys. Samoa Joe is a big guy. He's not uber muscly. He's pretty flabby in a lot of ways, but he looks terrifying. Kevin Owens, big guy, a lot more covered up as well, which is something that Trent might consider. Looks pretty tough. Looks like the sort of bloke you'd lose a fight to, at the pub or at the bar. If you're an international fan, and you'd think it's funny that I say pub. Trent Seven is none of that. He just looks like a fat bloke in his underpants with a bit of a quirky hairstyle. Like it doesn't have that mystique about him. I know he's good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't like him. I'm just saying there's the whole point of evolving your character is to kind of accentuate your strengths, sort of disguise your weaknesses while you work on them. And I think Trent Seven's main weakness is his look. I think he's a good-looking dude in a suit. I don't think he's a good-looking dude in his swimming trunks. Like, that's all I'm going to say there. But I don't understand why they were in wrestling attire anyway, because it was just a promo. And I was like, oh, is this leading into a match? But oh, and the other thing was they basically said, oh, there's no tag teams. We literally just saw two brothers double-team someone in a singles match and then double-team them after the match. That I would say is a tag team. I would assume they're going to team up again, not just a, oh, that was a coincidence. He happened to walk down to ringside at the same time as his brother. Like, you've literally just watched a match featuring what is clearly going to be a tag team in the UK division. Potentially two, because Webster making the save from Andrews might make them a team, at least in the short term. Who knows? So, it was a strange promo in a lot of ways. By the way, I will always stand by this. Tyler Bate, as he was in the first UK Championship tournament with just a moustache, will always be better than bearded Tyler Bate. Always. I don't know why he grew his beard out. He had this unique look going on, and then he grew his beard out, and everyone's got a beard. Like, now, you know, who cares? Obviously, I care. Tyler Bate's an amazing talent, but again, with that unique, those USPs, those unique selling points, that was one of his. I was going to say that was his, but that's not doing him any justice whatsoever. That was one of his, and he's chosen to take it away. It's his choice. Just my opinion. Mustache Bait is better than bearded Bait. Anyway, they finished their promo, and then we got a video package for Dave Mastiff, who is one of the guys I have seen live and in person at UK Indies back in the day. He had the video package, then he was fighting some guy called Sid Scala, or Scala. I can't remember how they pronounced it. I think it was Scala. I have no idea who that was. Obviously, just there to job to Mastiff, but no idea who that was. I liked Mastiff's debut. It was a good squash match without being like uber short, you know, like 30 seconds. It got to show off a little bit of his moveset and his personality, where Scala just clocked him in the face a few times and he just laughed at him, and I was like, okay, I like what they're doing with him. I did write down, I wonder who will win, which obviously I wrote down basically when the bell went to start the match, and I was like, yeah, I wonder who's winning this one. Dave Mastiff, great guy, maybe a little overrated by some fans, but he is really athletic for a big guy. But they say things on commentary like he can move like a cruiserweight, and it's like, no, he can't. He can move really impressively for a super heavyweight. He cannot move like a cruiserweight. He cannot do a Red Arrow. He cannot do a 450 splash. He cannot do any of this stuff that the cruiserweights do. He can do some athletic stuff for a bigger dude. That's becoming less and less uncommon as we advance through wrestling. There's loads of big men that can throw themselves around the ring now. So I think he's a bit overrated by some, but I still think he's a great talent. I really enjoy Dave Mastiff. By the way, Bomber Dave Mastiff, I don't know who thought of that nickname. It's rubbish. I know him, and by the way, I don't swear at all on my channel, so it feels really unnatural to be recording a video and saying this, but I know him as the bastard Dave Mastiff. Like, that was just his nickname on the UK Indies. He was the bastard. Now, I know why WWE aren't using that, but Bomber's a really lame substitute. I'm sorry, it's not good. I feel like that'll get dropped eventually. Like, I feel like that's gonna just, without being mentioned, disappear from what the commentators say, from his little name card when he comes down to the ring, you know, that flashes up on the screen. It's just gonna go away eventually, that, I think. But yeah, he was actually at a WrestleMania I was at. I think it was, I don't remember which one it was. I feel like it was 31, because in my head, my vision of it, it was light, and 31 was in an outdoor arena, and 30, which was the other one I was weighing up, was indoors, so it would have been quite dark in there. And he was walking up the steps to take his seat. He was in the crowd. and there was like obviously quite a few UK fans there, and the chant used to be what was it? Something about him being a bastard. I can't remember exactly what it was. He's just a bastard or something like that. So we all started chatting at him, and he seemed to really pop for the fact that he was over in like either New Orleans or California or wherever he was, and people were recognizing him, you know, like from because he was just a UK indie guy at that point. He'd never been televised that I know of. So yeah, it was definitely not internationally anyway. So it was fun, and he's always seemed like a top guy, and I really do wish him all the best. I feel like he's got the potential to be a sort of monster heel champion, or at least foil for the champion to overcome. I'd love to see Mastiff versus Pete Dunne, not gonna lie. So yeah, but not impressed with the nickname. Oh, I did notice though, he was fist bumping fans on the way around. Now I don't know if that's just being the sort of heel who will acknowledge the fans and who really cares. I don't know if that's indicative that he's going to be a face, which I don't think is necessarily going to be his forte, or I don't know if that's just excitement on show number 1. I'm not saying he like marked out and couldn't control himself, but I feel like this show might have been more relaxed and will get more and more into the strict character work the more weeks that go by. If you know what I mean, I feel like this show might have been a bit more relaxed, and it'll get tighter and tighter. Not because they'll get more professional, because a lot of these guys are really professional. I think it just wasn't a requirement for this show. I'm not trying to criticize the talent, is what I'm saying. I'm just saying I feel like it was a different vibe. It was almost house showish, just with cameras set up. Whereas I think once they get into the swing of it, it'll be taken a lot more seriously, like the weekly televised shows such as Raw, SmackDown, NXT, 205. I think it'll come together a bit more. Anyway, so yeah, it was a squash match. He was impressive. We went on to the women's match for the week, which was Toni Storm versus Nina Samuels. I've never heard of Nina Samuels. I've obviously heard a lot about Toni Storm. Actually, never seen either of these wrestle. Never even heard of Nina Samuels. She cut a bit of a promo beforehand that was a bit and then in the commentary later, they said something about she'd spent 4 years in acting school before deciding that pro wrestling was probably better suited and she'd rather do that. And I actually couldn't stop myself. I said out loud, I don't blame her, because the promo and the acting was just, it was just meh. It wasn't awful. It wasn't like the worst thing I've ever seen. It was just like, I came out of that promo feeling exactly the same as I went in, maybe with a bit of added confusion, like it did nothing for me. So yeah, but she was obviously the heel, you know, shouting at the fans and all that stuff, and then Toni Storm's obviously the babyface. It wasn't an awful match, wasn't a great match. It wasn't long enough for me to form the sort of opinion that a lot of people have on Toni Storm, where a lot of big Toni Storm fans would have probably been watching that, and they'll be saying, oh, you know, you're crazy, like, what? She did this and she did that, and it's like, yeah, but you already know she can do that well. You have to build a bit of knowledge up of these people before you can really consistently see what they can and can't do, and what they're good at and what they're not. And I feel like this match was just a little bit too little. The only thing I would say is, obviously the NXT UK women's division is going to be built around Toni Storm. She does have that certain star quality, that it factor about her, I feel. But I need to see a lot more before I can say, oh yeah, I'm a fan, or I don't really like her. I need to see a lot more. That said, I didn't really see a lot to like about Nina Samuels. I feel like this was a bit of a slightly more glorified squash match. I feel like the only reason Nina was really there was to lose. I don't expect to see her week in, week out on NXT UK. I just feel like, you know, they didn't want 2 back-to-back squash matches, so they had a bit of offense on both sides in this match. But this match was as dead cert as the Mastiff one going in. You knew who was winning both of these matches. There was no way. So yeah, Storm got the win. I can't remember what the finisher was called, but I thought that's a bit of a reach. But I'll accept it. It's fine. You know, there's only so many puns to go around for finishing moves, isn't there? Actually, talking of Nina Samuels' promo, I think, here I am, being on YouTube as just a voice and saying this, but I think UK voices sound weird on wrestling promos. I can't get used to, like, when I've seen them on NXT or anything like that. And now on this show, I can't get used to the accent. I'm so used to my TV being dominated by American accents, especially when I'm watching pro wrestling. Like, it didn't used to be weird when you had like a William Regal, because he used to stand out because of the accent. But now everyone's kind of got that accent. It just feels weird. It'll take me a good while, I think, to get used to it. And I know it's strange for someone from the UK to say, I'm not used to hearing the UK accent. But in this context, I'm really not. It's kind of like if I went into work tomorrow and everyone had an American accent, I'd be like, what has happened? This is weird. This is, like, totally not what I'm used to. Totally wrong compared with what my experience normally is. And that's what I'm feeling with the promos now. So it'll just take a little bit of time to get used to. Anyway, on to the main event. We had Noam Dar versus Pete Dunne. Noam Dar is the other member of this show, of the roster for this show, that I have seen live and in person, again, on the UK Indies. I always found him a little overrated. I got told by some friends when I was going to see him for the first time that were more familiar with him. They were like, he's the best thing about the UK scene, you know, he's this and that. And I was always watching for that potential, and I never saw it. I'm not saying he's not good, I just never saw that level. Like, even on the first show I ever saw him on, I didn't think he was the best guy on the show. And then when he came to 205, loads of UK fans, you know, when he did the Cruiserweight Classic, and loads of UK fans were like, oh yeah, that's amazing, no one down. And I was like, I could name like 5 people I'd rather have had the token Brit spot in that tournament. I think Noam Dar would have been a great fit for the UK Championship tournament, to be honest, and someone else could have had the spot in the Cruiserweight Classic, but it is what it is. Is he on? By the way, is Noam Dar now on the UK roster or the 205 roster, or is he on both? Because is the NXT UK roster part of the NXT roster? Can any of them show up on normal NXT, like Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate and Trent Seven have been? I don't know how this all works, but Noam Dar, last I checked, is on the 205 live roster. So has he moved, or is it kind of like a talent share thing where, you know, he'll go back and appear to add a bit of, you know, internationally recognised star power? Because let's face it, he's been on American TV a lot more than most of these guys. Well, I say American TV, international sort of network, the WWE network. Well, he's been on Raw, hasn't he? So yeah, he's been on American TV a lot more than anyone else on this show. So yeah, I think the hype with Dar is a bit much, but I do think he's good. Pete Dunne is just amazing. He's just great. I think I really like Pete Dunne. I wasn't in much doubt that Pete Dunne was going to retain here. I'll tell you what though, the point where Noam Dar had him in the knee bar, the Champagne Super Knee Bar, which is the best finish name ever. Talking of bad puns before, that's a great one. When Dunne went to tap, I believed it for a split second, because he didn't like just put his hand up and tease it. He actually just went straight for the tap, then stopped just before, and I think a lot of people in the audience believed it as well. So that was really good. By the way, speaking of really good, Noam Dar looked. I mean, I know he's been off with an injury, hasn't he? He looked phenomenal. He's he's the gym some while he's not been able to get in the ring. My God, that man did some sit-ups in his time off. It was crazy. I was like, I don't remember him ever looking like that. So fair play to the guy. That's what you should do when you're off with an injury, I guess. Is come back looking better than you left. The match was good. It went between 10 and 15 minutes. I did glance at the clock when the match was about to start, and I think there was about 12 minutes until I expected the show to end, but I didn't time it or anything, which isn't long enough to put on like a 5-star classic, but it was long enough to put on a good match with some good drama, a bit of good storytelling and some psychology, some good spots. I thoroughly enjoyed the main event, as I expected to. Like I say, just because I'm saying I think people overrate Noam Dar doesn't mean I don't think he's good. It just means I don't think he's as good as some people have said to me. Pete Dunne is as good as people say, in my opinion. You know, he's just that good. It was a good show overall. Oh, Pete Dunne obviously retained with the bitter end, and then they did a handshake and into Noam Dar's little finger, kind of giving the finger, but it's the little finger, and it's something to do with him being number 11 and him being a striker, and he started doing lots of kicks, like low kicks. Like the commentators, despite being English, keep calling soccer kicks. We don't call it soccer in the UK, we call it football. So I know they're trying to, they've probably been prepped on that and been like, yeah, call it soccer. But It's not, so it sort of bugs me a little bit. Our football, for the record, international listeners, involves your foot making contact with the ball, and the ball's actually round, as balls are really meant to be. Yeah, so go figure. You know, there's no carrying or throwing of the ball except by the goalkeeper. So I think it's a little bit more logical. But you know, that's just my opinion. It's none of my business. Kermit the Frog drinking meme. Yeah, it was a good show overall. I really enjoyed the show. I think I'm definitely excited to see where it goes. I think if you had to give it like a rating out of 10, it was maybe only about a 6 or a 7. But for a first show where I'm going in completely cold, not really knowing many of the talent at all, like out of the actual matches, I knew 3 of the people prior to this. You know, well, no, I know I've seen a match or 2 with Mark Andrews, and I saw Joe Coffey in a UK tournament match, I think. But you know, like in terms of actually knowing what I'm expecting from them, there's like 3, and considering how cold I was going in, I think that's a pretty good rating. Like, I don't want to rate it too highly. I think 6.5 would be totally fair, to be honest. Let me know in the comments what you think, what you give it, whether you give it a score out of 10, a percent out of 100. Obviously, that's what percent means. A letter grade, you know, like as if it's an exam and it's getting an A, a B, a C, a D, whatever. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Let's discuss. Let's turn this into a discussion in the comment section, and see what next week brings us. I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to keeping this series going. I think once there's I've got a few weeks under my belt, I'll have a bit more idea what each person's about, and I think these reviews will also improve over time as the show does, and as my familiarity with the members of the show improves. So I'm really looking forward to that. Don't forget to leave a like on the video. It greatly supports, not just gives me moral support in terms of, oh look, people like my show, but it also supports the Raw Wrestling Talk podcast channel and community, and helps everyone across the board. Make sure you check out some of the other channels, the other shows on the channel. You know, we've got War and Raw. I don't want to start rattling off too many because then I'll leave someone out and they'll feel bad, but there's a review for pretty much every weekly show in WWE. There's reviews for stuff outside of WWE. It's a real sort of network going on now, and it's really fun to be a part of. Join the Facebook group if you want to discuss wrestling with me and all of the other people that host segments on Raw Wrestling Talk on the YouTube channel. The link to the Facebook group will hopefully be in the description below. I'm giving the guy who uploads this some work to do, so hey, you're welcome. You're gonna get all this stuff in the description. Yeah, go and join the Facebook group. Join in the conversations with us. Share the memes. Post some GIFs with GIF Central over there. Have some discussions about what's going on in the world of wrestling. And it's not just a WWE group. There's loads of people in there that are really into the New Japan and stuff like that. So just start a conversation. Make sure you subscribe as well so you don't miss the next week of this show and all the other shows that are going on. But for now, I'm going to do my traditional sign-off because I don't know how else to end a video on YouTube. All I have left to say is thank you very much for listening. As always, I've been Ebeza, or Mike Ebeza, as I used my kind of full name on this video. You've been amazing, and I will see you next week.